Well, welcome out there once again to my program. Always a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to have you out there in the audience. I have a guest who actually has been on my program, but many, many years ago. And she also worked in the booth to operate the system that made the film, produced the video of my show. That was years ago. She's still in the same occupation. She's a real estate broker in the Fall River area. For a long time, was located where the Registry of Motor Vehicles is or was. I don't know if it's moved out, but now in a different location. And welcome, Rita Goodrow.
Thank you. Nice to be here,
Real estate
Richard.
broker.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Big difference than being an agent, right?
It sure is.
What's
it certainly
the difference?
is. The broker actually is in charge and responsible for all the actions of the agents who work under her license or under his license.
And an agent cannot do that.
No, an agent cannot. An agent.
Now, is an agent pretty much like just a salesperson?
Sales and listing. Basically, the broker and the agents do the very same things, but an agent cannot give directions to another agent as to how to conduct their business or et cetera. So that would be the difference.
And being the broker of the office, you have contact with other offices.
Yes.
In real estate, et cetera, banks, finance companies.
Exactly.
So, how is business? Well, let's tell the audience, where are you located now?
I'm now at 10 Purchase Street, which is at the corner, diagonally across the street for the parking for the government center and the main post office. So I'm right in that corner, diagonally across the street.
What was in that spot
Journal?
before? Oh, they're out of there.
Yes,
And you've got that.
I do.
That's a big office, isn't it?
About 850 square feet, yes.
All
But has
right.
great exposure with windows exposure on the corner.
Yeah. Easy for people to get to you, and
Correct.
of course you have a lot of the downtown crowd, the banks, etc. So that's a good spot. How long have you been there?
Since January 1st,
This year.
yes.
And you have a few agents in there with you?
I do, yes. Yep. We have some well-seasoned agents and some newer agents, yes.
And how about parking? Where do you park?
I actually have assigned parking in back of the Eagle Restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's Jerry Donovan's building where I'm located. And
Oh, he owns that building now?
He does. He owns a lot of, practically the whole block. If not the whole block, the entire block, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, good move?
I think so. I didn't have a choice because Jerry Union decided to turn my office and the other offices in that corridor into medical offices for Primacare. So I didn't have a choice. I probably wouldn't have moved if I probably would have just stayed there. But I'm glad I made the move. Yes. Yeah.
Now, Registry of Motor Vehicles, is it still there?
No, they're on North Main Street,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so
in between the two ramps.
that's good for people to know in the audience. Registry of Motor Vehicles.
They still go to the old building and
Oh, I can
looking for the
imagine. Yeah.
registry. Yes. Yeah.
But
they
it's
do.
now on North Main Street, so keep that in mind. Registry of Motor Vehicles, North Main Street, not at the old Durfee Mills any longer. So, how long have you been in business?
I earned my real estate broker's license in 1978, and from then on, continuously, I have sold real estate, represented buyers and sellers.
Okay, now, interest rates, you put your money in a bank, you're lucky if you get 1%.
True.
And that usually has a reflection on interest rates if you want to buy a house. What are the rates averaging roughly? We'll say for residential.
Sure. Residential 30-year fixed mortgage is about 3.5%, which if you, an easy way to factor your mortgage payment would be $4.50 a thousand. So if you had a $100,000 mortgage, your payment would be $450 a month.
$450 a month for $100,000. But as we know, let's see, $450 a month, we know that $100,000 in today's real estate market doesn't go too far.
That's true. You're looking more at $900 a month for around $200,000.
200,000.
Yeah.
So you don't come across too many houses
No,
for $100,000.
no. 150, 175, you can
Still?
get into the market. Yeah.
Single family?
Mm-hmm.
Fall River or
Yes.
surrounding area?
Fall River.
And you deal with properties here in Fall River, but how far do you go out?
I've actually been showing homes in western Massachusetts of late. I am licensed in Rhode Island and Massachusetts.
So you go out there?
I
take
do.
a drive out there?
Oh, yes. Yep, I do.
Real estate broker long ago, quite famous in the area. He said all he does is drive around all day and make money.
Really? I'd like to have his job because I
That's
don't.
not true?
No. It's a lot of work, and as the years have gone by, I find that more responsibility is put on the brokers and agents, and we're happy to do it. Mm-hmm.
Someone's phone is going off? No? Okay. So, someone's out there, they're looking for a house, they watch the show, they hear about Rita Goodrow, and they make a telephone call and say they're interested in a piece of property. What basically takes place in a phone call like that? What is the conversation about?
Well, the first thing that I usually recommend is that they be pre-qualified, so that they know, not to be looking at $400,000 homes if they're only qualified for 300 or.
Okay, pre-qualified, in other words, go to a bank or
Correct.
a lending institution and find out what they can afford.
Correct.
So that's relatively not new, but that didn't happen long ago. Is that correct?
Correct.
They'd stop in, they want to buy a $400,000 house, and you found out, months later that they drive a taxi and it's only part-time. So, but now
Hopefully
they're
not.
gonna come in. What's that?
Hopefully that's not what we find out months later.
Yeah,
But
now-
you're right, it's
That
true.
was-
And I can really attribute the change in policy to agents and brokers who no longer will accept offers unless the buyer has a pre-qualification letter from a bank or some type of lender.
Okay, so the buyer goes to the bank, discusses with the loan officer their financial situation. A loan officer makes a determination as
That's
to
correct.
what they could qualify to purchase. And what is the letter? It's actually a letter from a bank?
It is.
First National Trust Company. They walk in and they say, here's my letter. What does the
Exactly.
letter have on it?
The letter has on it the maximum amount of purchase price, how much the lender will lend them, for instance, if they need 3.5% down or 5% down or 10% down. With the mortgage amount, it states an expiration date. It's not good forever. And it basically states that it's the pre-qualification letter basically states that it's a preliminary review of their credit, their income, their funds to, for down payment, and their funds to close. So that's basically the components of a pre-qualification letter.
Now, I imagine that they stop in, they show you the letter. Maybe it's a month old. Now, do you ask additional questions? Because if they're supposedly working at a place and making $900 a week, but lo and behold, they could have been laid off or fired. Do you follow up in regards to that letter?
Well, usually they're not shy about sharing that information.
Telling you up front?
Correct.
Maybe they don't even want to stop by it. Because the letter is not quite what it should, what it actually stands for any longer.
Well, the situation is if they've lost their jobs, they no longer qualify, and they usually don't wish to continue to look for homes, and that's when they break the news to the agent.
Yeah, or maybe not even stop in.
Sometimes they disappear off the radar screen. You're right.
Yeah. So that has that type of information, and I imagine you can call the bank, whatever it is, and discuss with the officer.
We usually do.
Yeah, to
Yes.
make sure it's not just freshly printed.
Correct. Very easy to counterfeit.
Yeah. So you get that pre-qualification letter. What takes place after that?
Well, then you ask the buyer what level they may qualify for 300. They may only want to spend 225, which a lot of people learned from the last bubble that it's not always a good idea to max out the purchase price. And
Because
then
property values dropped and people were below.
That's right, and they have friends.
value.
Correct, and they have friends who are tired of not being able to take a vacation or whatever because they're just so tied down to that mortgage.
Yeah, I can imagine that that mortgage could really hold a person down quite a bit.
Change your entire lifestyle, absolutely.
Now, do you take into account if the wife is working? Do you take into account
Her income,
their
definitely.
Yeah.
If she's been there, if she's been there a long enough time if she's been hired within the last 3 months and she's been a housewife previous to that, then no, her income wouldn't be qualified. But usually if she's been there a year, they will usually include her income.
Do you have couples come in where the wife is making all the money and the husband
yes.
is a part-time taxi driver?
Yes, and sometimes the husband's credit is not up to what it should be, up to par, and so it goes just in the wife's name. That's quite common.
Now, in regards to credit, are they taken as a couple, or do you want to find out credit backgrounds of each one?
Basically, each one to see if that it might be the situation where it's only the husband and the wife's income cannot be used, or vice versa, and then we have to readjust the pricing qualifications.
Now, the credit check, you need permission?
Yes.
Or they sign something, you can look at my credit. You call up credit agency?
There are services that do that, and usually to save the $30 or $40 application fee, I usually explain to them that they have the right to receive a written credit report from all 3 agencies once a year. So not
Free?
to bring free, and they also do not risk dropping their credit scores because there are multiple credit inquiries from lenders. So if they pull it themselves, and that's a good place to start. That's not the end of it, but it's a good place to start.
All right, so you have the pre-qualification letter, you get the credit check. Is that pretty much comes after the letter?
It usually is before the letter. The letter is usually based on the bank's investigation.
Already?
Correct.
And will that be part of the letter?
Yes, it will.
So the background check of the credit is part of the pre-qualification letter that
Correct.
they'll present.
And it's not as if they divulge what the rate is or delinquencies or whatever. They just say that they're credit worthy, that they've met the criteria. So it's
Okay.
confidential.
All right, so it looks good. The client or customer, what do you call them these days?
Clients.
Clients used to be customers,
They
right?
were, but the agency.
Now they elevated to clients.
That's right. That's
All right, so you have the client and looks good. And they tell you what they'd like to have, right? Do they tell you what they like to have? I
Yes.
imagine they do.
Yep.
So
3
what kind of-
bedrooms, 1.5 baths. Sometimes they need a garage. Sometimes I recommend don't put that in your criteria because perhaps there'd be room to build a garage and the house will, be at such a price that you have the ability to construct a garage later.
That makes good sense. Now, then what do you do as a broker? So you've got an idea of what they want. So now what do you do to find them something that could fit?
Well,
You have listings yourself.
I have listings
imagine the
myself.
Agency, so you check your listings and
correct.
if you get something you'd want to
Oh, yeah, show it right
sell
away.
what you have.
And then what I do is the MLS system has evolved into a wonderful system whereby if you have email, I can set the client up so that every time a property comes on the market in their price range with the criteria that they need, the MLS just sends them listings
Sends it directly to them?
directly to them
Not
with a
to you?
copy to me, if I
Oh,
choose
okay.
a copy to me, which I usually do, of course.
Now, can they go around you to say, get this listing? from
They
MLS?
can, but I already have all the information. I've been doing this so many years that, you know, I really feel I have the ability to represent them well, in that I've had appraisal courses. I know about the programs out there. There are some wonderful grant money programs.
So you think they
So-
won't go directly to the other broker?
They usually do not do that. They usually are loyal.
Let's skip Rita, and I'll go to Charlie. He's selling that house.
No, that usually doesn't happen, thankfully.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's typical throughout the market. Most people stay loyal to one. You know, they have better representation if they do, in my opinion.
Right, and the commission that's taken out is going to be the same anyway.
Correct.
Whether it's full to you or a co-broke.
And the difference is with the new agency relationships, if they go to Charlie and buy the house directly, they don't have representation because he's already locked in to represent the seller. Whereas I can go in as representing them and point
buyer.
out flaws in the home and the neighborhood and et cetera, that they won't have that representation, that guidance. For instance, Charlie cannot recommend to them unless he's actually he cannot recommend to them what price to offer, where I can do that if I'm working directly for the buyer.
'Cause
Things
you-
have changed.
Yeah, you represent the buyer, and you're, you know, what they call fiduciary duty is to who
Exactly.
you are representing in the sense of it's either the buyer or the seller. Okay. Now, how about a home inspection? You tell me about that.
I think, quite frankly, the home inspection is the best money a buyer can spend because, first of all, there are probably flaws in the house that we don't notice. We don't pull the electrical panel off. We don't go up on the roof and tell them how old the roof actually is. Sometimes sellers don't mean to be, but they perhaps bought the house 2 years ago. They thought it was 5 years old when they bought it. It was really 10 years old when they bought it. Not their fault. The home inspector will
And sellers don't usually go around and point out all the defects.
No,
anyway.
they don't. They don't.
They take a powder.
Yes, this is true.
Let the buyer go through with the agent and hope for the best.
Right. And usually, you know, when home inspections are performed, there are issues that the seller deals with that they normally wouldn't have, so therefore it's money well spent. Plus, the home inspector will try to tell them how to give them advice on how to get the most years out of the hot water heater, how to maintain perhaps the wood shingles on the exterior of the house, and give them really some valuable information.
Now, what about, you get to the purchase and sales agreement, do you have any situations where the house is sold as is?
Yes.
And
Thanks.
what is that? What does that mean?
Well, there's something in the market that probably most of your audience knows about is REOs, which are bank-owned assets, and the banks typically do nothing to improve the house for the sale. They might clean it up, they might do some things prior to putting it on the market, but when a buyer comes in and, you know, a window needs to be replaced, they usually don't do that. So that's as is. They're not doing anything to the house, it's as is. However, still, if you have a home inspection done, it may make you think about perhaps changing your mind because there were more issues with the house than you realized when you first had the initial walkthrough.
Or offering a lower price?
Sometimes that happens. They
Bargaining.
renegotiate the price as well as the repairs. You're right.
Home
You're
inspector
correct.
found this and this and that, and you're asking $250,000, but he's telling me there's $30,000 worth of repairs.
That happens.
I'll offer you $220. Homeowner says yes, no, or negotiates a little more. And these things go back and forth sometimes for a while, is that correct?
Correct.
People want to sit on the offer, and let me give me a couple of weeks, let me think about it, not a problem.
A couple of weeks would be unusual. Usually when the offer to purchase is submitted, it states that the seller has to come back with a yes, no, or negotiate within 2 days,
Okay.
3 days.
So it shortens that, that negotiating period somewhat. Now, you have a closing, and you attend the closings.
I always do.
You know, what is your position at the closing? What do you do at a closing?
Well, sometimes things come up. We have the final walkthrough, and sometimes some of the things that weren't supposed to be done, that were supposed to be completed before the closing, haven't been done. Sometimes items are removed from the house if there was a misunderstanding.
Chandeliers are gone.
Yeah, shower heads.
All those beautiful doors. Now you get all these hollow core. Yeah. That,
Correct. So to iron out those issues, sometimes there are issues that come up between the buyer and the seller. I always review the closing statement. There are, and sometimes agents and brokers find errors and correct them.
Now I know well, there are titles that are done, and
Correct.
sometimes a little problem might come up in the title. What do you find that might come up sometimes?
Probably one of the most common issues are mortgages that have been paid off or liens that have been paid off, and yet the discharge has never been filed. So you have to track down the person who is owed the money or was owed the money, and have them prepare a discharge or have their attorney prepare a discharge.
You get that file at
Correct.
the Registry of Deeds. That
Exactly.
clears the title up, right?
Correct. Yes.
Municipal liens, not a problem.
The municipal lien certificate takes care of all that before
Right,
that's
just
issued.
Call up the city, they'll tell you
Yeah, they'll give you the
gladly how much
certificate.
you're
Yes.
owed.
This
And you
is
get
true.
that certificate. That's part of the documentation at the closing.
Correct.
What about loans? What's on the market that's pretty good these days?
Well, FHA requires a 3.5% down payment.
3.5. Now that's low on the low
That's
side.
low, yeah. And then there's USDA and VA, which require no down payments.
That's NVA.
VA,
No
nothing down.
No money down.
And USDA as well, which was actually the old Farmers Home Loan that
And that's U.S. Department of. Is that what it is? Or no?
something. Yes, I'm not
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and also,
no money down.
Yeah, and also Quicken
But you have to
Loans.
be a veteran for the
A
VA.
veteran for the VA loan. USD loan is towards the rural areas. If you go online and check out USD loans,
That's in the rural areas? That probably is the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
probably is. I think you're correct.
Yeah.
But they will tell you if your house that you're intending to purchase qualifies. Also, Quicken Loans just came out with a 1% down. They grant 2%. You have to have 1% of your own money, and it makes the buying process a little easier than FHA, the appraisal qualifications, the condition of the house.
1% down. So if you're buying a $300,000 home, you only need to put 3% down.
That's
Of
right.
course, you're going to have a big mortgage of, we'll say roughly $297,000.
Correct. And you need, you need the income to support that.
Yeah. Not like the old days, we could ride by and just kind of buy it. Before what, 2007, 2008, sometime
Yeah, a lot
back
of things
then.
changed.
So, a Quicken Loan, and that's advertised quite a bit on TV. I
is.
see that all the time,
Yeah.
Quicken Loan.
Yeah,
Are they quick?
they are. They
Well,
are.
Okay, how quick?
Within a day or two, you have your pre-qual letter. Yes.
All right, and it's over the phone.
It's over the phone. You need to scan documents, pay stubs, bank accounts.
To them.
To them, correct. But it's
Okay.
that they're based
Now,
in
let's say
Michigan.
someone
Detroit.
doesn't have a computer, or they are not able to scan. Can they stop by
Sure.
the Goodrow, Rita Goodrow office? If they're
Absolutely.
your client?
Sure,
And
absolutely.
you'll feed that material to Quicken Loans. And that, imagine, speeds up the process quite a bit.
Sure. Yeah, it does.
Now, All right. What else do you have out there? You got Quicken Loans and any other type?
Lenders, there are some wonderful lenders here in the city that do FHA, do some other types of loans,
Like
as
who?
well as Bristol County Savings Bank. They do portfolio loans. Sometimes you have somebody who's really qualified, but there's a little glitch so that they can't sell the mortgage on the secondary market, and they hold them within their own
Oh, I see.
portfolio.
Yeah, because
so-
that's quite popular these days, the secondary market.
Oh, yes, that's very popular.
Not like the old days where the banks held all the mortgages. Now they loan the money and
Sometimes they're sold the same day.
out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all right. So you got these different loans, and what else should we know? We're getting down to the end of the program. What else should a buyer or even a seller know?
Well, there are some wonderful grant programs for Fall River, New Bedford, and Taunton.
How about the CDA, Community Development Agency? You ever deal with?
I do, yes. They have a wonderful program. They'll give you up to $15,000 in some of them, and if you own the home 5 years, they just forgive the mortgage.
15,000?
Yeah.
They forgive it?
They forgive it. And I know in New Bedford it's up to 10,000, and you have to live there 10 years.
Well, you're saying Fall is 15?
The last I checked, it was 15,000 in
Wow.
5 years. I'm not 100% sure that they haven't
Yeah.
changed, but that's historically that's been the.
And roughly, how would someone qualify for this?
You have to take a class. You have to through either the agency,
Are you a
Bob Landry.
first-time home?
You have to be. Well, you can't have owned a home, your principal residence for the last 3 years, and sometimes.
Say that again?
You can't have owned a residence for the last.
All right, so if you own a home now,
Well, sometimes there are target areas, and sometimes they allow it because it's in a target area, like Fall
Okay.
River can be a target area.
all right. Okay, Rita, we're getting right down to the end now. Anything quickly you'd like to add? Let
Well,
people know where you are and your phone number once again.
correct. And, if you'd like to stop by to see if you're qualified to purchase a home, or just to talk about, home purchasing or listing your homes, we list them as well. Stop by, give me a call, and
Okay, you heard it
Discuss it.
from a very qualified professional real estate broker here in the city of Fall River. So if you have any business, you're living in the city, stop by the Rita Goodrow office on Bank Street and sit down, and I'm sure she'll be able to help you out. Well, anyway, and the other thing is that Friends of Cook Pond looking for someone with a boat so we can go on the pond and film the pond. So if you know anyone with a small boat, get in touch with me. I want to get on that pond and I want to film it going around. So anyway, thank you out there for watching, and I'll see you next time.